Hello, everyone, and welcome back officially to Tips for Teens. I am so excited to be back with this school year starting, and I was grateful to be able to start off with Sergeant Mills. Sergeant Mills, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Well, thank you for joining us on today to share this information with our teenagers. I have a lot of young people that often ask me about enlisting into the military. So I can tell them from my point of view, from what I do with the military, but it is great to be able to hear from someone who actually has all the information and can help assist people in their journey into the military. So, Sergeant Hills, can you share a little bit about yourself while I share this on my other site?
Perfect. Hi, everyone tuning in. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us today. I'm Technical Sergeant Mills. As she spoke previously, I am an Air Force Reserve recruiter out here. I do cover parts of Florence, Charleston, North Myrtle Beach, and some smaller towns in the local area. I've been in the military. October 20th will actually make 10 years. I've been in the Air Force Reserve. I enlisted when I was 21 as a single parent. So for you single parents out there, it is an option for you. Don't think that just because you have a child that you can't do it. It's just a simple waiver. As long as you pass the credit check and you have a great recruiter, they'll take care of you. Before becoming an Air Force Reserve recruiter, I was a crew chief. I worked on airplanes. So if you were watching the news during the Afghanistan evacuation, those big gray cargo planes that you've seen flying in, evacuating people, those were the airplanes I used to actually work on, the Charleston ones that you were actually seeing on the news.
Wow.
I did that for about 6 years. Then I cross-trained to be a unit training manager, and I ran the training for all of the maintenance group. And then I decided I wanted something a little more full-time, so I decided to put in my recruiter packet. And now I am the Air Force Reserve recruiter for Charleston Air Force Base. And November will make 2 years that I've been here helping people join the Air Force Reserve.
Okay.
So that's a little professional side about me. Personal side, I'm 31. I have 2 kids and 1 on the way currently. I have a bachelor's degree in logistics management. I've earned 2 associate's degrees through the military, through both of my jobs that I've gotten. So that's an option for you if school is something you're interested in doing. And that's things I like to do. I like to read books. I like to learn new things. YouTube is the new thing, audio books, stuff like that. But that's just a little bit about myself.
Okay. So as far as with recruiting, what's your favorite part with being a recruiter?
So I would have to say my favorite part with being a recruiter now that I've got my process down is just helping people like achieve their goals. I deal with prior service people like yourself, if you were trying to join the reserve, from the Guard. Or I have my non-prior service people who are straight out of high school looking to help get, help for college, single parents, stuff like that. So each individual is different, and it's good when you get somebody in front of you, whether on a Zoom call like this or actually in person, and they sit down and tell you, hey, this is what I really want to do with myself. Can you help me? And it's just gratification that you can help somebody change their life. Just as simple as, I'm processing your application. That's pretty much what I do. I help you join, but in the end, you have people come back in your office and like, thank you. You really changed my life. I made it. Thank you so much. I think that's probably the best part about it.
What would you say to people who may be struggling as far as with getting in with their weight? What would you normally suggest for people when they have issues like that?
So the height and weight requirements, of course, I'm not a medical professional. That's my professional answer that we have to give. But I would definitely, if you're serious about wanting to join, figure out what the height and weight requirements are. So even if that's just reaching out to a recruiter or going on Google, because our height and weight requirements are on the internet. You just type in Air Force Reserve height and weight requirements, and it'll pull it up. It's based off inches. So if you're 5'2", you're 62 inches tall. And it will tell you your minimum weight and your maximum weight. A lot of times you want to be at least 5 pounds below your max weight, because a lot of times at MEPS you get a little shorter. So then that way your max weight drops. We've learned that. I don't know why, it just happens. But I will consult with your doctor and see what works for you, because they want you to lose the weight in a healthy way. They don't want you to go to MEPS and they say, hey, you need to lose 10 pounds and expect to see you next week. Like that's not logical, and it's not healthy for you. But as far as that, dieting, talking to your doctor, water, walking, you don't really necessarily have to do these vigorous exercises, but just a little walking and cardio here and there would definitely help as well. As far as medical, you can't really change your medical history as long as you don't have anything crazy major wrong with you. A lot of times, a lot of stuff is waiverable, but because we're on live, we can't really get into specifics of medical stuff. But if it is something that's in your medical history, you would just talk to your recruiter about that, and they will let you know the documentation that you need, as far as whether it's pharmacy records, doctors from your notes from your pediatrician from back then, or your doctor or whatever. So,
okay. So what about the age requirement as well? That's one of the big questions that I get. And a lot of people will say, what's the latest age that you can be in order to enlist in the military?
All right. So the age used to be 35. Now our age demographic is from 17 up into 39. So if you start the process at 39, excuse me, I have bad acid reflux. As long as you're enlisted by your 40th birthday, you can join. So you can enlist a week before you turn 40. You're good to go. You can be BMT and 40. You just have to be actually swore in with the Air Force Reserve by 40.
Okay. So, all right.
But with 17-year-olds, the only thing different is that when you're 17, you have to have both parents' consent. So you have to have whoever's on your birth certificate, mother and father, have to sign off on you joining, unless one parent has a pretty much proof of a court order, a death certificate, or the other parent is incarcerated. They have to prove that you are the sole custodial parent for that person. But between 18 and 39, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. That was a big question a lot of people had. Now, what tip would you give to teens? I know we're going to talk about some enlisting processes, but do you have any major tip that you would give to teens in today's environment?
I would say when it comes to the ASVAB, take it in your high school. They offer it, I think, once or twice a year. Your guidance counselor or the JROTC instructor at your school should know when they're testing for the ASVAB. They say the high school ASVAB is easier than the one they administer at MEPS. I don't personally know because I took the MEPS one 10 years ago. So, but I've heard just from people who have took a test in high school and then waited 2 years, or, they took time off and then had a retest and they took it at MEPS and they said it was a little harder. But this is the time to really take it. Juniors and seniors, you're already prepping for SAT, ACT, whatever test you're going to take. The ASVAB is similar, except for you add in a little more mechanical stuff and electrical stuff. So Google is your friend. You got ASVAB for Dummies books, Quizlets out there. They have a few programs that require that you have to pay for, but I've heard people tell me it works. Andy's ASVAB, things like that, that'll help you score well enough. The minimum score to get in the Air Force Reserve or the Air Force period is a 31. As you can see, you may talk to a recruiter next week and they're going to tell you, hey, we've already filled those jobs. We need at least a 50. And that happens throughout the year where you may need a 31, but you want to score as high as possible because that's what helps you with your job selection. But study, take it serious. If you're reaching out to a recruiter, just make sure that you're ready to start the process right then and there. There's nothing wrong with calling ahead of time, doing your research, but at least let them know, hey, I just have a few questions. I want to, really start the process in, let's say, 30 days. Just be upfront about that, because a lot of recruiters will think you're calling them to go ahead and join, and you're just really kind of calling to get information. So just being upfront, honest about that in the beginning, that'll help cut down on a lot of the customer service issues and complaints we get, because I'm only one recruiter and I cover half of South Carolina. Whereas the Army, you can walk right next door. They have 8 recruiters. It's only one of me. So it's like I can't be on the phone 30, 40 minutes for every person. So understood that emails out there, cell phones, stuff like that. Google, you have the afreserve.com website for the reserve side. You have airforce.com for the active duty side, if that's something you're looking towards. And then just ask around. If you have family members, like you said, they ask you questions because you're in. Just ask people that you know have went through the process, people in the Army, the Navy, the Marines. Ask as many questions as possible, simply because my experience may not be your experience, just like your experience may not be my experience. Of course, we get the stigma, Air Force is the best. Of course, that's my my biased opinion because I'm in the Air Force. But like I tell everyone, we have our little branch wars, but we all do our job in a different way. If it was meant for us all to be one branch, we would all be one branch. So we all have our mission, things that we have accomplished. I've known people that decided, they'd rather go to the Army than the Air Force because that's what fit that person's personality better. So there's nothing wrong with doing what's best for you.
That's true.
Even though the recruiter may be upset, you still have to always do what's best for you because it's your career and your life. So
right. Well, you've gotten into a lot of the basic things that I think a lot of people want to know. But what do they need to know as far as step one, or just the basics of enlisting into the military?
All right. Step one, a lot of recruiters are going to require you to fill out a pre-appointment form. If any of y'all have held a job anywhere, it's just like filling out a job application. You can't walk into Publix and say, hey, I want to interview without filling out a job application. And what the pre-appointment form does, it just helps us assess your pre-qualifications, make sure you're good height and weight, make sure your medical is good, stuff like that. U.S. citizen, non-U.S. citizen, that's two different processes that kind of helps us lock in what we need to do. Once you fill out a pre-appointment form, then comes the source doc. So if you're in high school, you have to get a letter from your guidance counselor pretty much stating, hey, such and such is on track to graduate June of 2022. We just have proof that you're not failing your grades or anything. You're on track from your guidance counselor on the school letterhead. You either get a driver's license or a state ID if you don't have a driver's license. It's best that you get your driver's license because, once again, certain jobs require certain things. So if you don't have a driver's license, that drops your list of jobs that you qualify for. Social Security card, birth certificate, those major things. If you took JROTC in high school, kudos to you. I would say definitely keep that up if you haven't already. If you're like a sophomore thinking about it, I would say take one your junior year, take one your senior year. You just never know because if you've done at least 2 years of JROTC, you can come in as an E2 over an E1, which means you make more money, which means you come in at a higher rank. If you've done at least 3 years of JROTC, you can come in as an E3. Also, with how high school is now, it's a lot easier to earn college credits in high school than it was back when I was in high school.
Right.
I only had maybe 3 college credits, but now you can pretty much graduate with a diploma and associate's degree. If that's something your school offers, take as many college courses as possible, because if you have at least 25 credits and not the ROTC, that helps you come in as an E2. If you have at least 45 college credits, that helps you coming in as E3. So that pretty much helps you rank up a little faster than what somebody else would do.
Right.
No college credits or no ROTC. Now from there, once you get your source docs, we have a system we have to build you in electronically. Excuse me. Once we have you built, then pretty much comes the initial interview. That really just depends on where you stay at. A lot of my people aren't local, so I offer a Zoom initial interview. We get online, we talk, we fill out some forms because they have to access like a portal, fill out some forms, and then we schedule your next date. For my local people, a lot of them just come in my office. We'll do the same process in person. We'll fill out forms. Once we've signed off on our forms, then comes MEPS. So MEPS is in Columbia, South Carolina at Fort Jackson. It's ran by the Army. It's on an Army base. So it's a little more stricter than what you normally see on the Air Force base. But when you go to MEPS, it's either a same day process or one stop. And how that works is pretty much same day at Fort Jackson is on Mondays. So you would check in on a Sunday. You would wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Breakfast at the hotel. The hotel is paid for by, whatever branch you're going with, whether Army, Navy, or Marines. You don't pay for the hotel. You stay at the hotel overnight. You wake up during wake-up call, eat your breakfast. You take your ASVAB that morning, and then you do your physical afterwards. The hardest part of the process pretty much is getting through MEPS.
Mm-hmm.
Your ASVAB and passing the physical. If you can get past that, you're pretty much good to go. How our process works in the Air Force Reserve, you don't swear in at MEPS, you don't do job selection at MEPS with the Air Force Reserve. You do all that with us at our office. So let's say you pass your ASVAB, you pass your physical, you call me and say, hey, Sgt Mills, I'm done, I'm headed back home. The next day, normally I'll draft up an email and you'll get a list. Hey, these are the bases. These are the 2 bases that are closest to your address, and these are the jobs that you qualify for. Mm-hmm. Whereas we have a lot of jobs in the Air Force wide, Air Force Reserve wide. We're local to only specific bases. So whereas like Joint Base Charleston, we're airlift wing, our job is to keep C-17s in the air or doing some type of civil engineering type of thing. Mm-hmm. So we're only going to have specific jobs at that specific location. So as long as you score high enough, you pretty much pick from a list of open jobs. It won't be for every job that's in the Air Force Reserve Command because we don't recruit for every base like active duty. Mm-hmm. But it will be, you will have a choice unless, of course, you score like a 31, 32. You're probably going to qualify for 1 or 2 jobs, and those are the only 2 that you have available. Mm-hmm. Once you've picked your job, then comes your security clearance. For teenagers, you're 17, 18. Most of the time, you're probably going to have your high school on there. If you've held a job, your job on there, and your 3 references. As long as you have that information, your security clearance will be good to go. Mm-hmm. And we'll get that checked. We'll do your fingerprints, and we send it up to the FBI to do their thing. For single parents, it's a little extra step in there for us. We have to fill out what we call a 357, and that pretty much you have to have a responsible adult in place for where your child or children will be while you're in BMT and tech school. Once you get that, then we'll have to get a copy of your credit report. We send that up to our headquarters, and they bring it back and say, hey, this person is good to go. Or, hey, this person needs to eliminate this amount of debt before we can approve the particular waiver. Just depends on circumstances, case-by-case basis. As far as that, once your security clearance is good, you pick your job. We send your file up for QC to our flight chief, and then we pick a day for you to enlist. As long as you don't have anything crazy on your background, speeding tickets, of course, we're not supposed to be speeding, but sometimes it happens, right? You want to be upfront about that because I see that in your background. So don't tell your recruiter, no, you don't have speeding tickets, and then they pull your background and you have 10 speeding tickets. Because at that point, they can just check you off and say, hey, we don't want to continue this process because, of course, if you follow along with the Air Force, one of our core values is integrity first. So it's always to be open and honest because as long as you're honest with your recruiter, if they lie on their end, that's on them, not you. Right. And then like marijuana, of course, that's a prevalent question we get all the time because certain states it's legal. It's no longer disqualifying. It's just that you still can't smoke in the military. But prior use, let's say you smoked a year ago, that won't keep you from joining. We just have to know that information and make sure it's not a chronic problem. But if you're going to start the process and you smoked 30 days ago, you might want to wait, because you don't want to go to MEPS and pop positive. And any recruiter will tell you that. Wait your time, because if you pop positive, the only branches that'll do a waiver for you currently is the Navy and the Army National Guard. Everyone else will turn you away. So if you're strictly thinking of the Air Force is really what I want to do, don't indulge, okay? Background as far as arrests for the adults, stuff like that. A lot of stuff is waiverable. It just depends on what you have on your background. And don't think that you can't see it because the FBI can see it. The Air Force, every job requires a security clearance. And if you can't pass the security clearance, you won't be able to get in. So as far as that, that's pretty much the process. It'll take from start to finish, it could take a full 30 days as long as you don't have any hiccups in the road. So
okay. Yeah, that's it's very similar to the process that I went through. It changed a little bit from when I enlisted. One of the questions that we had was, what area are you in charge of? Can you go back over that area one more time?
Yes, ma'am. So my zone is pretty large. I have about 500,000 people in my zone. It's just little me. But I go as far north as North Myrtle Beach. As far south, I believe south is Mount Pleasant. I go as far east as Somerton, and then as far west as what is that town? Florence, actually. So me and another recruiter, we split a little bit of Florence, but for the most part, even if you were to contact me and your zip code is not in my zone, I can pull the information up for the recruiter that you belong to and give it to you. And any Air Force recruiter can do that. They can pull your zip code up in the system and do it that way. So,
okay, all right. Well, I thank you for taking the time and to thoroughly go through the process for us and for any teens who may be interested, any parents that may have questions. Sgt Mills has shared her contact information. If you look at her name, you'll see her email is up there. It's easier to email Sgt Mills and get a response by email. Anything else that you want to share before we close out today?
none that I can think of. Did anybody have any questions? I can't see the chat or anything. So if they are asking you questions, you can read them off to me, but I can't see them to answer them. So
that was the only question that I saw. I'm going to check back through right quick just to make sure that I didn't miss anything from anyone who may have questions. If you do have questions, of course, make sure that you reach out to her by email. And again, that is one of the quickest ways that you'll get your response with everything going on. No other question that I see right now, but if you do have any questions, make sure you reach out to her because
I do have something. With COVID-19 vaccines, we are about to be mandated. So if that's something that you're hesitant on, I'm just going to tell you up front, if it's not something you're interested in doing at the moment, that's going to stop your process at the door right there. Because unfortunately, once you are in a contract, unless you're about to separate within 180 days, you're going to have to get flu shots, whatever shots they tell you have to get. So just keep that in mind if that's something you're weighing in on. Don't feel pressure to do it. You know, everyone has their own personal choice at the moment, but be aware that by December 2nd, all Air National Guard and Reserve personnel will have to have the COVID-19 vaccine. So.
Well, they might as well get their mind right for it.
Yeah, and that's a big question people ask. Unfortunately, I mean, I can't do anything but give them my arm. So, but yes, ma'am, that's all.
Okay, well, thank you again, everyone else. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching live and if you're watching on the replay, make sure that you contact Sgt Mills and for any questions that you may have about the Air Force Reserves. Thank you again, Sgt Mills. Everyone else, we'll see you next time.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Bye-bye.